Richmond, north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Living in
That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
Started giving people free quotes.
In sunshine and rainbows, it isn't
a thing for just being a solo
The
operator.
change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars. Today I have Reon in the dungeon. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, very good. How are you, Garry?
Oh, I've had a big day, so just had the chance to unwind, put my Aussie Lawn Stars shirt on and get a drink. Time to wind down, but I've just published an interview with Beck from Beck's Gardens in Canberra. And when I was arranging to interview Beck, she's like, oh, you need to interview some of the other guys that are in Canberra. And she gave me a number, and it turns out that guy's not doing it anymore. And he said, hey, you need to talk to Reon. So here we are.
It's always nice to get a recommendation. But yeah, sad that other guy's not in business anymore either, because, yeah, he was running a really nice business. So, yeah.
Yeah, would have been good to get a bit of insight into that, but nonetheless, you're the second person in the ACT in this little mini series.
Privileged I am. Certainly, there's some better people out there, but I'm glad that I can squeeze in here and have a bit of a chat to you. It's very nice of you.
Well, you've given me a couple of other contacts I'm chasing to get more interviews in your area, but don't worry about comparing to other people. There's always, for me, I like to talk to people that are in various stages of business and doing different things and giving my listeners the opportunity to see how people do things differently, because there's not a right or a wrong way. Somebody starting a business might start with zero skills, zero business background, and they're quite happy just doing a couple of lawns on a Sunday for beer money. Somebody else might come into it, want to make an empire, and they might be looking at, having 50 employees, and their focus is on something else. Now, your business, I believe, started with a landscaping background?
Yes, yeah. So I did a year and maybe 2 months down on the coast with my father-in-law, actually. So he runs a really good business down there, and so that's directly east of Canberra is the best way to sort of explain it. And
so he's in New South Wales?
Yes, yeah,
yep.
New South Wales.
Yep.
And yes, I did a year and a bit with him. Also did a couple of months, 3 or 4 months, helping a builder build a small granny flat. So that was kind of my entry into the construction industry. And then, sort of continued there. I wasn't thinking that gardening or anything would be or landscaping would be my dream job or anything like that. I was just sort of planning on moving up to Canberra and just getting a job and seeing how that went. And then, I ended up spending a year as a butcher for one of an award-winning butcher up sort of small goods in Canberra.
Nice.
And, there was two butchers in with me, and both ended up quitting. So I ended up becoming the head butcher with no skill set. So went from literally labouring to running a seven people team.
Right.
Heading into Christmas, and I survived 2 Christmases there, and then went, I think landscaping's a bit nicer. So that's
you would have had good price on your meat though.
Yeah. We got some free meat. It was very good. But it was the hardest I'd ever worked in my life, and that included labouring on the coast for Phil Lush, who runs Lush Landscapes, and he was driving us pretty hard. No excavator. We were the excavators, and I'd sort of run through doing 40 to 50,000 steps a day.
That's a good way to wear yourself out.
Yeah. But moving up to Canberra, the butchery was much harder. So I stepped away from the butchery and went, well, hey, maybe I'll try landscaping and a bit of maintenance, a bit of a go. And I jumped into CIT and gave witches our TAFE. So tried to get qualified in both hort and construction. So,
okay.
yeah, ended up getting both of them. So that was kind of my entry in. And after the butchery, I kind of needed a bit of a break, and I just sort of bounced around a couple of different places to try and find someone as good as my father-in-law to work for, and I couldn't
Yep.
end up finding any.
So can I just ask about your training
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
So you did CIT. I'm guessing you would have done Cert 2, or did you do Cert 3?
No, so I did 2 Cert 3s, so both horticulture and landscape construction. There's a bit of overlap, so I was probably a
Yes.
bit cheeky there. So I think maybe 4 subjects out of 13
Yep.
swap over, so that's
Yeah.
handy. But I ended up getting a diploma in horticulture as well, which was nice, and the TAFE was doing that at
Yeah,
the time.
okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah, so Cert 3s plus the Cert 4 to get the diploma. That's that's good.
yeah, well,
So-
it's a nice step into the industry. I think to at least give a couple of subjects a bit of a go and see if you like that kind of area. But yeah,
So that would mean that you're fairly well qualified across the spectrum for landscaping. It's certainly capable of doing construction, but in Canberra, you're under ACT legislation. So I know different states look different when it comes to qualifications and what work you can carry out. So I think, I'm just racking my brain. I talked to Clint Adams from South Australia. I don't know if you know Clint Adams from WaterPro Lawn Hub. But he is on the Landscape Association board down there. So I think it was him that was saying that in South Australia, you can't do everything in landscaping unless you're qualified in those various different topics. So say, for instance, you've got construction, but you might not have paving. You can't do paving.
yes.
Or
Yeah.
you can't do irrigation because it's a separate thing.
It's an interesting one. Canberra has a few very lax legislative laws and bits and pieces
Right.
just in the fact that you're allowed to go out and do any sort of structural landscaping with no license or no certificates behind you. We, unlike sort of New South Wales neighbour, you're up to $5,000 worth of landscaping. You're allowed to do, but no structural stuff. So no retaining walls, no sort of paving, no decks, that sort of a thing. Whereas Canberra, it's really free reign. So it's an interesting melting pot of people sort of getting out and having a crack, as well as some really high-end professionals that are sort of leading the way.
Now,
it's interesting.
I think New South Wales, people can still do the construction work, but their customers are under no obligation to pay them if they ask for their qualifications and they're like, well, I haven't got any. They're like, well, I'm not paying you for the work you've done.
I've heard stories of that happening. I haven't ever sort of come directly across it, so I haven't. Yeah, I've seen personally one tiler that did a $60,000 job in New South Wales, and then they pulled that stunt.
Yeah,
Yes.
wow.
So it's a very interesting way to run business. But yeah.
Well, I must say, if you're doing a $60,000 tiling job and you're not qualified,
It's an interesting one because in Canberra, you don't have that need to get all those qualifications. So there's some really good tilers, there's really good landscapers out there. I even worked for one that was quite good. He would be up in maybe the top 3 or 4 landscapers I've worked with, and he's got no qualifications whatsoever. But they move into New South Wales and off they go, and total different laws and legislation. So even simply just with retaining walls, you can, I think from memory, it's 600 mils and above in New South Wales. You need engineer's approval. You need engineered designs, all of these sorts of things. Canberra, you can go up to 1 metre from memory.
Yeah, so New South Wales has a couple of different laws that come in there, and I'm not doing construction, so don't quote me. But there is one law in terms of 600 mils, and then there's another one for a metre, and I can't remember if it's relating to insurance or licensing, but yeah, there's a couple of different things that come up.
Yeah, from memory, it's just engineers' approval for anything over 600 mil in New South Wales. So I'm sure that licensing is separate as well. But
maybe the licensing comes in at the 1 metre mark, but the engineering at 600. Unless it's your own property. So if you're doing your own property, then who cares? Anybody can have a go.
It doesn't matter if it falls over. But yeah, it was that was sort of the reasoning why I decided to push my own business, because I worked for 3 different guys during a space of about 4 months, 5 months, and we built a retaining wall in the rain, poured the footings in the rain, and it was a 1.3 or 1.4 metre retaining wall, and it fell over. It fell over 2 weeks later. And as we were pouring, I just said, what are we doing? And the boss is just, oh, no, get in there, just keep smashing it away. And it's like, well, it's, I don't know, this whole family sitting there with this retaining wall right up next to the house. What are you?
Fallen over. It's not a good look.
No, another team, we built some, just a nice paved area, and it sunk 2 weeks later. And I just went, what are you? We didn't even finish the job. We were still building at the same place. And I just went, look, I appreciate all your time and energy. Look, as much as I'm complaining about some of the people that I met early on, I now look back and I go, well, there's, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 companies that I see from time to time, and they build brilliant stuff. So it's, just people can get away with a little bit more, I suppose.
Well, I guess people need to actually go and do the training if they're going to start thinking about these things, right? That's the main point that you've made there, is that things go wrong, and when they're not engineered properly, if they're not constructed well, they do go wrong. But take, for instance, paving. Like if you're laying pavers and you just chuck pavers down on the existing ground that's there, clearly you don't know what you're doing. But if you're going to do it properly, then you're going to do an excavation, you're going to do a compaction, you're going to lay a sub-layer or multiple sub-layers depending on what you're working with, right? Yeah. So you might do a fairly solid layer, and then you do sand, so you've got something to work with while you're laying the pavers. Does that sound right? Yeah, I'm not the expert.
No. You're on the right line. So, so sub base, so DGB 20, so a densely graded base at 20 millimeter sizing. That's kind of we can now put that down and then put a paving down, and then a truck can hopefully go over it. Look, you can go to scalpings and bits and pieces, other types of base material, but you're looking at something that's got that really big particle all the way down to that little particle to lock into place when you compact it. And we can get something like 98.5% compaction just with a little plate compactor, a sort of 60, 70 kilo one, going over that. So therefore, trucks can then finish driving 2-3 years later and happy days. So it's, the base layer of sand, so 20 mil of sand, that's a washed river, so a sharp sand, and that one allows you to get water movement, so that it doesn't, if you use a fat sand, the particles are so small that the water sort of sticks, and then
so like a builder's sand.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, So it ends up sort of sinking down as you're walking on it down the track, but it prevents weeds and all sorts of stuff having that layer. And then you use another finer, different type of sand, maybe a Sydney beach sand or a paver locking sand, something like that, to brush it all in and tidy it all up. But again, that's just one way of paving. You can pave on concrete slabs and do a more tile glue method, or
of course.
List is endless.
Or lay the pavers into the wet concrete while it's drying.
Exactly. So list goes on. But those sorts of people that are going out and having a crack, the sort of DIYers. Look, there's some brilliant DIYers that are doing some awesome stuff in their own yards, but it's having that little bit of extra knowledge that'll help push it to last the sort of 40, 50 years that we all want it to.
People can often find the answers on YouTube if they want to go and have a crack and do something themselves, and there's a wealth of knowledge on YouTube. But it's easy to get the wrong information there too. So you could get something that's not relevant to your area. The engineering might be okay in the US, but not okay in Australia. All those sorts of things. I look at things like retaining walls, and I'm like, there's so much that goes into it. Whether you're doing it on a concrete base, whether you're pouring piers, all the different things that make a difference there. One of the big things with retaining walls is, of course, drainage around it. So if you've got water behind that retaining wall, fair chance it'll fall over, exactly. Regardless of how you build it.
It doesn't matter. How short the wall is, because it can potentially be holding up 300 or 400 tons of material from behind, but it doesn't become 300 or 400 tons of material until that water is in that system, and it all becomes one weighted body, if that makes sense. So it all flows through and therefore pushes up against that retaining wall.
So a little bit of rain and you probably don't even notice it, but when you get enough rain, then that soil behind the retaining wall will move and put pressure on the retaining wall.
And off it goes. So, simple things so there's a term called the angle of repose, which is pretty much if you look at soil sort of getting poured down into a pile, it will create its own natural peak and flow. And of course, clay or something like that, it's a bit stickier. It'll be higher up with the same amount of material, and then sand, sharp sand, like I was talking about earlier, will be sort of laying down a bit further. So you then use this angle of repose behind your retaining wall so that you almost don't have any weight pushing up against your retaining wall.
So I'm guessing you use different things in the back of the retaining wall there, so you don't put soil right up against it. You're putting something else in there to fill that gap. Yeah.
So the angle of repose is almost that sort of metre back. So if you can, you're sitting 2 or 3 metres back is your actual soil that you're retaining, and then the rest is your drainage material. It depends on how high the wall is, or it could be little 600 mil wall and therefore only needs 100 mil or 200 mil back to get that angle of repose going, if that makes sense.
And then if you use interlocking bricks that have a natural angle on them as well, then that gives you another factor there. Yeah. Reduces that.
Yeah, there's depending on the material, because you can build a retaining wall just about out of anything. There's even people building them out of straw bales and then putting mud brick, just mud on them. But that's more of a farm sort of a style to save a bit of money when you're doing 300 or 400 metres of it. But it really, every material will have a different, sometimes you'll have to have a concrete footing that you'll lay straight into, or you'll have concrete footing with steel jumping up through it so that you can put your block around that and pour concrete through. So it gets very technical very quickly into landscape, and the more, the fancier the material and the tighter the site, which of course we're getting tighter and tighter block sizes. It gets quite tricky sometimes, but hence why engineers and stuff are involved. So
the way Australia is moving at the moment, there's more and more residential blocks that are under 500 square metres total.
And half the house, probably 400 square metres is the house. You're trying to squeeze a little garden bed in and around that.
Yeah, there's not enough room for a garden bed once you put a retaining wall in.
No, exactly. And that's the thing, we try and do the sort of the design, construct, and then maintain. So we'll try and design this nice build and go, well, hey, this house sits here, where does the sun sit, what sort of plants can we pop in here, and then sort of work backwards there, and then do the build, and then try and look after it into the future. So it's probably a business model that needs a little bit of that background knowledge to pursue into it. And look, I'm still learning every day, because there's so many intricacies, and I will be learning for the rest of my life, hopefully.
Well, I guess this is where, we started the interview talking about the difference between guys that start with a low barrier to entry versus somebody who's got all the qualifications. You can take somebody, and I started with 0 qualifications, right? And then my background, I had some experience with lawn mowing and gardening, but not a lot. You can take anybody and they can go and do some landscape maintenance.
Yeah, of course.
But they can't do construction.
They try. They do try. And
well, they've got to fill some gaps.
Hey friends, I'm just eating my lunch at the moment, but wanted to give you the heads up. We've got a brand new deal between Catch Pro and Aussie Lawn Stars. If you purchase on catchpro.com.au now, you can get 10% off your product purchases by using the code LawnStars10. So jump on it, save yourself 10%. Just keep in mind this doesn't work with bad workwear, GA spares or Segway. Thanks.
Yeah.
They got to fill some gaps to get there.
Yeah.
But obviously that's true of maintenance as well. Anybody starting in maintenance without any skills, excuse me, they're going to start doing a really poor job, possibly. And hopefully they learn as they go, learn from their own mistakes, or they learn from talking to other people and asking questions. But yeah, certainly where you've come from, you've started with experience with another company.
Some.
and then doing the qualifications. So you've got all of that in the background that you've done to get to the point where you're running your own business.
Yeah. I'm sort of sitting in a position where I was still molded a bit in fire, in the fact that I still started out probably, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years earlier than I should have. I was comparing myself to some other tradesmen that I worked for, and when I was looking at my own quality of work, look, I only spent a year and a couple of months working for someone really good, and I was able to redo my parents' entire front and backyard down on the coast where I grew up. Whereas some of the stuff that I was seeing up in Canberra, I was a little surprised at. And I thought, look, if they can do it, I'll give it a bit of a whirl. And sort of starting into that maintenance-y side of things gave me that ability to make those mistakes in the landscape side. So I almost used the maintenance to give me my bread and butter and that paycheck rolling in while I built some nice things, and also some probably not very good things that we then rebuilt again later down the track.
Yeah.
So I think there was only maybe 2 jobs where, one lawn failed. I think it was due to a puppy dog weeing in the same spot with a really bad diet. The dog was on some pretty interesting medication, and just any area that it whittled on, there was some serious issues. So we rebuilt that, and we also had I used a H4 timber, so something that's meant to go in ground, and I put it outside but above as a fence, and it ended up bowing. It ended up bowing. So look, we all make mistakes, but it's about how we respond to them, I think, is the main thing. So they're all fixed now. I'll say that.
The dog pee on the lawn is a common one that comes up. The thing I've heard that best describes that is that if you have a good quality soil already, your nitrogen levels are right, then the dog pee will increase the nitrogen levels to the point where it kills the lawn. So you get those spots where it's died. Obviously, when you've got a dog that's on some crazy medication, it's not just nitrogen. But typically, if you see a dead spot where the dog peed, it's like, okay, we're actually doing something right, because the lawn had the right nutrition in it to start with.
The issue is when it starts to move over the sort of 30 square metre mark. It ended up changing the pH up to 10. So got to deep purple on my pH chart, and I'd never seen soil that bad before. It could have
That
been a
is
mixture
significant.
of, yeah, could have been a mixture of rainfall and all sorts of stuff during that time. Getting rid
One of the
of
jobs I've done that I've referred to in my podcast before is an interesting one. So I got asked to maintain pretty much every property in a new subdivision. So the builders did the construction, they put gardens in and they put turf in. And they complained about the quality of everything while I was maintaining it. And my observations were this: they didn't put any soil in these properties at all. So plants planted in the garden beds were planted straight into rock hard clay, and turf spread straight across rock hard clay. And then they expected it to thrive and complained to me about my maintenance when it wasn't thriving. And what they'd done in the garden beds is they'd put a little bit of wood chip over the top of the clay so you couldn't see the clay. You just wondering why the plants weren't thriving.
And then it's up to you to keep trying to hit it with fertilizer and try your best to look after it.
Well, they weren't even wanting to spend money on the fertilizer. So
there you go.
It's a case of we've built it. The person maintaining it and the people living there are now responsible, but they were just looking for somebody to blame. And unfortunately, I think a lot of new work is like that. It's not thought through by somebody like yourself. It's the builders just slapping down a pine board along the edge and calling it a garden border and putting a little bit of wood chip behind it and planting one or two plants.
There is a lot of that, of just scrape it back to something hard, whether it be clay or just pure rock. We've got a fair few areas in Canberra where they've just scraped back to rock. They've dumped the house on because, this is a nice, good foundation. But then I come along and I quote it up and I go, sorry, that's 3 or 4 days of jackhammering to get down to the right size garden bed depth, even 300 or 400 mil, to just get some ground covers in.
And even then, when you're doing 300 or 400 mil on rock, where's the water go when it rains?
Exactly. So yeah, you've got to be quite clever with the way that you flow water around. We recently did one where we were jackhammering for 4 days to try and get some sort of garden bed happening, and they too had drainage issues in another area, just too much hardscape, not enough softscape. So expanded out some garden beds and actually flowed everything back towards the drainage pits, which
in one of my more irrational purchases was a 1.7 ton excavator, and I don't do landscape construction, so it was a case of going, I can use this for doing garden cleanups and odd jobs here and there, doing like laying some turf or something like that. But I wasn't getting a good use out of it. Whilst I had it, though, I got asked to quote on a drainage job, and I know enough to quote a drainage job, but I went and had a look at this property, and I was like, I can't get my excavator in there, so I'm going to be hand digging this. And it was one of those properties we just talked about, like the clay, and it was all pooling in the backyard. So all the water pools into the centre of the backyard because it's all sloping in towards the centre. And the drain pit that was there was not in the right spot, so it wasn't at the lowest point. And then I was like, all right, I've got a quote on putting ag pipe and gravel and all, and then doing it properly. No, I just walked away and I said, I'm not doing it. Can't get an excavator in there. I'm not coming in and digging all that by hand.
It can be some crazy sort of stuff where it's just not that no gardens are really thought upon during the build process. And we look after a few stratas, but any sort of garden maintenance that we do, either it's something that we've built, or it's something that I'm happy or the client's happy to rejuvenate and regenerate to something that's a bit nicer than what it is. So the couple of stratas we have are right next to each other, built by the same people, and the massive driveways, they've just poured any sort of excess concrete straight into the garden bed. And where we had the sort of planting plan to just slowly, sort of 60 plants a year or something like that, quite minimal. They're only 50 unit complexes, but we just slowly but surely have removing some of this horrible clay and concrete and you name it, and putting in good stuff and trying to regenerate sort of one plant at a time. And look, we have losses still anyway, just because of the way it's been built. But it's certainly greener and nicer than when we started a few years ago. So
yeah, and I think this is one of the things I've been focusing on at the moment. I've talked to people in a few different specialties in terms of looking after, in terms of looking at soil quality and what it should be doing when you want a garden or even just a nice turf to thrive. And the typical approach is often throw some chemicals at it. And I've often gone, okay, what's the soil profile look like? And obviously that's people who understand that go, okay, let's take a soil sample, take a decent depth soil sample so you can actually get a good gauge. Like you're saying, if you're doing 400 mil deep for the garden bed, whereas in turf I might be doing 100, 150 mil deep just to get a really good idea of what the soil profile looks like. But often the soil that you take out for the profile looks terrible. It's like, okay, if I can increase the compost and manure content in that soil, get a humus content that actually looks like it's fertile soil, it's going to be really resilient and it's going to be able to handle rainfall and drought and still hold moisture and keep the plants alive and doing really well. So you start looking at ground cover or wood chip over the top of it to hold some moisture in, or if it's turf, just making sure the turf's healthy to hold the moisture in. But yeah, so many times it seems the answer is just throw some NPK fertilizer in there and water it.
yeah, it's something that's easy, and people think that it's a very fix-all kind of a method. But we try and work as organically as we possibly can. So we do the complete opposite of trying to dig out what's there, put in or mix in some really nice stuff to get it going. And strangely enough, we actually have a place called Lantasia Compost, which is all the way, I think it's 100k from us, 70k from us, and it's organic certified stuff. And we actually grab as much as we can and try and ameliorate it into all of our jobs, whether it's a garden maintenance sort of a one or a normal construction build, because there's no life. There's no life in these new builds in the fact that they've scraped off everything, they've thrown it to the tip, and then they've grabbed some fill from some other poor sod's house a couple of streets down the track and popped it in, and there's nothing there. And hence exactly what you're saying, by putting a bit of life and structure back into the soil, you're able to have water holding capacities. You've got this brilliant life which has this rejuvenating effect on the plants. And just lifting up some worms and seeing that, you just instantly go, well, hey, if I put a plant in here, it might actually grow. Whereas half the places, you'll lift up some soil and you'll go, I don't think there is any life in there anymore. It's gone.
I ordered some 80-20 mix from a local landscape supplies company I can't name, but a truckload of 80-20 mix that I can just use when I'm working to be able to do some filling little holes here and there and just a little bit of levelling to improve the site. It's set like concrete. So when it's sitting there in a pile, you go along to take some and you've got to take a pick to actually break it apart. You'd expect 80-20 mix to be fairly loose because it's sandy, right? But what they've mixed in with the sand must be like almost clay because it just set rock hard, and it's like there's no humus content in that at all.
It's very similar here, and I'm sure it's similar across the planet as well. You really have to look for the materials from specific places and just go, well, hey, three out of maybe, I think there's six landscape suppliers, 3 I will not use their soils. And it's a bit disappointing, and I don't share that with everyone, in the fact of if someone really loves one of those main companies, I'll just say, oh, yeah, they've got nice oil. Because that's the thing, they've been using it for the last 20 years, but I don't, we've done pH testings on some of their stuff, and that's a very, very simple test. And you're looking at outside of your planting range. It's sitting either too acidic or too alkaline, and you go, well, why am I paying any money for this? This isn't going to work. It's just not going to work. Similar thing. We put one job in. We ended up getting some decent rainfall, and it just bogged down. And you could almost sort of jump up and down and make a bit of a wave in the actual soil. And you're looking at something, and you go, yeah, we just dug it out and just went, well, sorry, I'm not using that one ever again. Take a big learning lesson, that one.
Yeah. I got asked to create an instant hedge for a customer, and in my area I opted for Photinia. So the options were, fairly cheap plants in the Morayas or the Photinias, and the Photinias were the preferred choice out of the two. So I got a rotary hoe, like an old garden style rotary hoe, and I dug a trench as deep as the width of the rotary hoe. Dug all that soil out, and then I threw chook manure in there with the soil 50-50, so that what I was putting back in that trench was 50-50 chook manure and the old clay soil that was there. And then I planted the plants in that and set up watering, and not a full irrigation system, just told him to hand water every day for the first few weeks, and then back to twice a week after it started settling, and put wood chip down over the top of it once it was all set up. And it within 6 to 12 months, it was awesome. So I think within 6 months it looked great. Within 12 months, it was a 8-foot high, thick, lush Photinia.
And then another 6 months, it's probably another 2 meters high.
Oh, no, I was maintaining it, so it was good.
And that's the sort of thing. With a bit of structure and a bit of extra life of that. And that's the other thing. It depends on what's your base in underneath. If it was a pure clay base underneath, you might even want to put a little bit of sand in there as well and mix it through. It just depends.
Well, I didn't make it an awesome soil, but it was a lot better than what it was starting with. So if you do the traditional method, you just get a little coring drill. Your pilot hole is like maybe 150 round if you're lucky. And then the roots are going to be root bound when you put them in those holes.
Correct. Yeah, it'll just spin round and round as if it's a pot, because you've just created a pot in the ground.
And then if it is hard clay, then every time you get rain, the roots are going to rot.
Yeah, and it just depends on what sort of soil you've got. I know in Perth and stuff, it's very, very sandy, and you're adding stuff like clay to it so that you get a bit of water holding capacity and a bit of nutrient holding capacity, and that's
exactly
the thing.
Yeah.
And you look online and you quickly go, oh, hey, this YouTube guy is going to sort of show me the ropes of how to do this. And in his area, it might be bloody magic. It might be perfect. But they'll also potentially say, hey, this is how you do it for everywhere. They won't say for everywhere, but they'll just say, this is how you do it. This is a fact. And then you have to analyse it from there, I reckon. That's my thoughts. Great use of knowledge.
Yeah. So, Reon, we've jumped down a very interesting rabbit hole, but let's jump back out of that one now and take a bit of another look at your business from afar. After inviting Sortscape in to share how their software can help your business, we created a link for you to be able to support Aussie Lawn Stars when you join. Sortscape will save you time and effort with scheduling, quoting and reporting so you can build a more efficient business. Visit sortscape.com/lawnstars now to join, and thank you for your support. So when you started your own business, did you fairly quickly identify your ideal customers? Were you looking at residential blocks that are small like we talked about, or were you starting to look at acreages as well? Or?
No, just still residential small. I wouldn't mind moving into that bigger sort of an area, but just the fact that we're doing such diverse stuff, if we're doing those massive jobs, we just need more manpower and more knowledge on site. And for me to be on site, look, I'm on site sort of 3 to 5 days a week, and I try, and my guys are really, really good, but we're doing irrigation works, fencing works. We put up a pergola the other day. We've even done a couple of water features. Everything's changing, and if I'm building something massive, I need a bigger team in behind. So I've always gone for the sort of higher, well, I'm trying to aim for the higher end client with a smaller backyard, because the newer stuff don't exist. The sort of 1,000 square metre blocks are disappearing pretty quick in Canberra. So, but
Yeah.
bigger
So
than that
most of them are
is-
half that size or less.
Yeah, exactly. And bigger than 1,000 square metres, it's going into New South Wales sort of territory, and we've got enough work in Canberra to last us, so we're happy.
Yeah, my friends just sold their property up at Collector. I think it was 1 acre
Yeah.
in Collector. Nice spot there.
Yeah, beautiful little area. And look, I wouldn't mind moving into the future. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
just we need. Yeah, we've got some. Yeah, so we've got two fully qualified guys, one in horticulture and one in construction, and we kind of blend those guys in to each area, because I do think that it's all one. If someone's just designing the whole time, and they're not seeing that final end result, then they don't know in 5 years how everything's going to grow and look. And look, there's always people that are magic at what they do, but I like the fact that we try and look after each area, and be a bit more inclusive. It's just the way we want to take on a client and then look after them long term is the main thing.
So the balance between new constructions and maintenance work, do you have equal number of employees in either division? Or what you're describing there, it makes it sound like you've got the qualified guys doing a bit of work across the board, so they understand the maintenance, not just the construction side of it.
Yeah, so tiny little team. So it's only me and two fully qualified full-timers, and casual guy that sort of comes in, or 1 to 2 casual people that come in from time to time, and they're very handy to help bolster those numbers and get some extra work done. But it's mostly those 2 guys and me trying to help along as much as I can as well. So they do,
Okay, and that's doing the maintenance as well as the construction?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So we do 3 days usually of construction a week, and then Thursday, Fridays is sort of a maintenance-y sort of a day.
Yeah, okay.
But it really depends on the season. So winter we do a smidge more construction. We might do the odd sort of garden rejuvenate, sort of big hit of mulch, big weed out, you name it. And I sort of class that a little bit more of the maintenance, even though we might be, I don't know, putting in a hills hoist here or there or whatever else.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's important to, I don't know, I've worked on so some of my background throughout the business, I approached a few really brilliant people in industry and went, hey, can I help you out? Can I jump in and get paid to work on these beautiful gardens? So I did.
Yeah.
I did that with one guy, Bill Mirams. He looked after a bunch of embassies and all of the housing and some of the sort of higher echelon people, and that was all maintenance side of things. But I saw, some brilliant places that we're looking after, but I also saw a bit of a disconnect of us doing some hedging, in a space that there is no room to do hedging, and it's just it's simple. And these are some of the most high-end gardens that are in Canberra, at least. And I'm going, well, there's just a little bit more design, thinking about that construction, that maintenance or construction ability is, it's a tricky one. So.
Yeah, look, I think what you're conveying there, and I'll put my own thoughts in here, tell me if I'm right or wrong, the balance between design, construction and maintenance is an interesting one. And I've heard a couple of guys I've interviewed talk about this, where often it's a completely separate business that does the design. So you might have a well-known designer in Australia. Obviously, we do. We've got a few that are really, they charge a premium for their designs, and then it's up to somebody else to do the construction and somebody else to do the maintenance. And there's a real disconnect between the three teams that are not actually in the same company or anything. They're just completely different objectives and completely different way of thinking about landscaping or maintenance or whatever it is. So what I understand there is that often the practicality of a design when it comes to construction or maintenance is lost.
Sometimes there's always people, because to me, if you surround yourself with other businesses that have that like mind, there's going to be, and again, I've then helped out some construction guys, and one in particular, Matt from Blades. I jumped in there for maybe 7 or 8 months and just helped out a couple of days a week, and he's able to bring in some beautiful designers that know that end result. And Matt too, he's come from a gardening perspective as well. His first business was a garden maintenance business, and he jumped into construction afterwards. So he's sitting there with 40 years of knowledge, 20 in each, and he's going, well, this is how it works and this is how it flows, and they look magic in the end. So
that makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
And what you were saying earlier in the podcast in terms of thinking about the aspect of the property and where things are going to thrive and where they're not going to do well all comes into that, particularly at that design stage, to make sure that once that's implemented, the constructions happen and the maintenance is in place, you're looking at those projects and going, well, they actually have suited the climate and the property and the customer so that they're long-lasting and still looking great in 5-10 years' time.
Yeah, exactly. Look, we try and cover all the areas, but of course, if you do everything, you'll end up just burning out and not existing in 5 years' time. So it is a balance of life as well that you need to.
So I spoke to a guy in Sydney, Adam, and I'll give him a shout out if he's listening. I need to catch up with him again and have a chat to him. But he started in basic lawn mowing, probably low skills like myself, came into the industry, and then he managed to pick up some work for developers going in and implementing basic landscape constructions on new subdivisions. So it was working really well for him, but they were what we're describing before. They're like basic entry-level landscapes, not high-end customers. So it's all right, let's throw in a garden bed, throw in some lawn, throw in a hills hoist, maybe a fence, and walk away again. So the reason I bring him up is not throwing shade on what he did. It worked well for him. And obviously there's a huge need for a lot of properties, particularly in places like Sydney where there's a lot of immigration happening. You got to provide a lot of new homes, and that, those basic landscapes are needed. You're saying you're aiming for high end, and we've classified that for fairly small residential properties. I'm guessing when a customer comes to you, they're spending more than 10 grand.
Yes, yeah. We do maybe a $50,000 or $60,000, and that'll be the front yard. And then,
so if they've got a backyard, then double that?
Yeah, it depends on access and all sorts of things, or if we're drilling through rock and doing the usual stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we're sort of pushing into maybe the 100K for both. But of course, it's some huge money that they're playing with and that I'm playing with. So sometimes we might just put a couple of elements in to start the journey off, and that doesn't faze me either. If we're, getting a bit of drainage done and putting in a nice sitting area and a couple of plants that are going to be maybe fruit trees or something that they want in early, then hey, let's do that. We don't have to do the whole shebang.
For the benefit of my friends who are just building a house at the moment, they're building on something like you're talking about. It's a reasonable size house on a 500-ish square metre block. It might be closer to 600 square metres for their block maybe. And they really love their gardening and want their yard to look really nice. So they're paying a landscaper, construction design, the whole lot. And I hope they're getting value for money. But it sounds to me like what you're saying is spot on in terms of around that $100,000 for front and back to come up reasonably nice and be a decent landscape.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll tell him to listen to this and they'll go, okay, yep, we're on the money. We're in the right ballpark.
It just depends. It's strange because we've quoted up water features that have been 20,000 on them on their own.
Of course.
So it depends on the elements you want and the sort of, I don't know, you might want a bit of stone to stand on for your nice pathway or something instead of a cheap concrete paver, and bang, it jumps up another $4,000 for just stone alone, no labour, no nothing. So yeah, it can.
But your average where it's a front and back is $100,000, and
yes, but it takes us a little while because most people don't. They've spent their money on their $1 million house and or the build or you name it.
That's right.
The landscape comes in and the gardeners come in afterwards and they go, well, we don't have much money for you.
Well, I guess it depends if they want that slapped together, the basic garden bed with no soil in it, a little bit of turf and a hill's hoist, or whether they want something that is going to serve their family for years and years.
And here's a cool one too, which I offer occasionally, and it's for those people that don't have that huge budget to play with, but they're willing to have the time. So you can amend some of these horrible soils, much like what you're saying previously with your Fatinia hedge, was chuck a bit of manure in there, chuck some sand in there, but put a couple of nice layers of different types of mulch. So a mulch that might break down a bit quicker, and then something over the top to give it a bit of life. So we quite often, and we use a lot of an arborist mulch. So any sort of nice non-weed species tree that gets trimmed down, mulched up, chipped up, gets sold to us as fresh, and we'll pop it down into some of these gardens and stuff that they're going, well, hey, I don't need the $100,000 one instantaneously now, but let's start amending those garden beds, bring some life in, and yes, it also has its own issues with nitrogen drawdown and stuff like that, the fresh mulch. But yeah, it ends up being, hey, 2 years' time, we're going to plant some brilliant stuff in.
So one of the things that comes up there, there's so many rabbit holes I could dive down with what you just said, but one of them that comes up is the type of mulch you put there is going to make a huge difference. So hardwood or eucalyptus wood chip is going to be fairly acidic, is that right? I think so.
I don't know.
Often people will go for something like a pine bark or a straw mulch or a I'm just trying to think of all the different things there. There's quite a few options there that are fairly gentle to the soil but still give you a bit of moisture protection, but they might need a bit more upkeep on the mulch, whereas your hardwood chip, you put it down 100 mil thick and you don't have to touch it for a little while because it's so hard, and like you say, you got the nitrogen drawdown issues but when you start dealing with stuff like that. So you don't have a particular type of mulch you prefer that you go, okay, this is going to be good for gardens or good for that application?
Yeah, it depends on the purpose. Look, we use a lot of tan bark, which is sort of the dried out sort of stuff, and look, it looks quite nice because it's a nice sort of dark browny sort of a colour, and that's nice for tidying up beds and getting them ready, looking nice. We'll use some hardwoods if they want some more long-term weed protection and water retention, you name it. We might steer clear of the odd eucalyptus. It depends on the sizing of the mulch. The mulch that we get that's eucalyptus mulch here is quite fine, so it becomes very hydrophobic. So water struggles to penetrate through, but again, it has its own uses for that weed retention on a walkway, which you're never going to plant. Well, some people want to plant some plants through the walkway, but but most
some ground covers.
Yeah, most of the time you'll want to put something down that, hey, I don't really care if not much water gets through this. I just don't want the weeds. Off we go. But arborist is good. I find that again, it's just another avenue for a bit more life to jump in. To jump in to the landscape and start rejuvenating that sort of circle of life that's going on in the ground, because we need the fungi, we need the mycorrhizal fungi and the bacteria and the little microbes all working together in unison to bloody get some plants growing for us, because it's all needed. But yeah, that arborist mulch is just another avenue to go, here's a bit of extra life, and it wasn't sitting there in the landscape shop for 5 weeks getting blasted on the concrete by the sun.
Now, whenever you've got plant matter or some manure that's breaking down, it's going to bring in some of the fungi and some of the microbiomes that are going to start working in the soil and sort of transferring nutrients from those things, plants and animals that are dying, gradually breaking down. But yeah, certainly different ones are going to react differently or take longer or less to return nutrients to the soil.
Hence why it's so valuable, I think, to grab little bits. And I don't know, I'm starting my own little compost out the back purely for my own clients, to just pop a couple of worms into someone's garden to get some stuff going, because it's just disappointing turning up and going, well, where's your life? You want me to grow some nice plants for a beautiful garden? What can I do with this? It's about returning it to where it is. Yeah.
You know, start getting that soil to look nice.
Which is weird coming from a landscaper. Look, I love my construction sort of a stuff, but I think it's that unison of trying to. There's no point in putting a nice little bit of paving in if every plant right next to it's going to die, because there's just too much concrete from the edges that have just been tossed in there. So it's
I've seen that so many times.
It's just that long term thinking, I think, is quite key.
With your higher end clients, you get a lot of unique requests come through. I'm guessing that would bump the price up and sometimes double the price in terms of what you're working with.
Yeah, definitely. Just simply, I don't know, we had a few quotes come through that were about crazy paving. I'm not sure if you know that, but it's just sort of smashed up pieces of rock and stuff like that, or just you use the rock how they come and you shape it to place. And just really nice. And then you sort of do a grouting technique to kind of tie it all in together. And of course you're laying that on mortar, you name it, and that sort of thing can be jumping up to, I don't know, $700 or $800 a square metre when the stone itself.
It's very labour intensive to get that looking good, isn't it? I've seen Joel from Install Gardens do a lot of that work.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, there's some beautiful. I don't know, it becomes a bit more of an art form of becoming an artist is a bit much, I think, sometimes. But look, there's some probably artists in their own right that are doing some beautiful stuff. So it's it does change it all up, and it's not for everyone as well.
I think our industry is full of artists, from people who just cut lawn really tidy to people who are really brilliant at hedging and then, like you say, going into construction and design work as well. There's a lot of opportunities for artistic flair and practice to come out there.
Yeah, I hope I have a bit of artistic flair with my designs and my builds, but I think if I start calling myself an artist, I'm not helping people anymore, maybe, as well as, I don't know. I think it has to be practical sometimes as well.
I think the artistic side is what allows you to qualify yourself and qualify your customers as being high end. If you do what I was suggesting in Sydney there, just, your fairly basic landscape, no thought, just basic stuff, just whack in straight edge garden there, lawn turf there, a concrete path to the clothesline and a letterbox. There's no art in that, right? But when they want something that stands out and high end, every opportunity to do that, there's a bit of flair in it.
It's trying to turn it into a proper home. It becomes a home when you've got that inclusive garden and that living space outdoors, whereas it's it's more of a house that you go to sleep in when you. But I always vouch for the gardens. That's why I'm in the industry. But that's my kind of love, I think.
Well, I guess if you take the love out of it and you take the art out of it, then you're just doing $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 installs.
Right? Yeah, correct.
But why charge a customer $100,000 or more? I mean, like your front yards that are $50,000, $60,000. Why charge them that much if it's just a no thought gone into it and it's bare bones basic?
And this is an interesting thing too, when I have a lot of conversations with people about that sort of $100,000 price tag or $300,000 price tags. They'll go, well, hey, that's crazy amount of money, and it is. It really is. But it's that time and effort to go and do all of those things. And some of these $100,000 jobs that we're doing, we're coming out at cost. We're going, well, we didn't make any money on that whatsoever. And that's part of the love of the passion of what I have as well. But look, for those businessmen going out and going, hey, this is a cool idea and stuff, I think it's a brilliant thing to be able to build all those things and have that inclusive nature. But you're not going to be earning anywhere near as much money as if you're concreting every day or mowing lawns every day or just on the whippersnipper every day going through brush and like no tomorrow, unless you're pricing with that sort of design element in mind.
Efficiency is the thing that rules a business and the decisions you make as a small business owner. Right Mowers give you the options in their product lineup to match efficiency with size, fuel usage and the type of jobs you want to target, from catching to mulching or side discharge, from roadside verges to acreages and manicured lawns to 6 feet tall and super long. I've been using the Right Stander I 42-inch with a Catch Pro for manicured areas and the Stander ZK61 to maximise productivity for large open acreage mowing. If you need to replace your push mower, try the 32-inch Stander B. If you have more open access to residential properties, there's a 42 through 48-inch option that suits you. And if you want to enter the acreage market, the 52, 61 and 72-inch machines have choices in engine size and model type to suit the work you want it to do. Right Standards go the distance, saving you time and money, season after season.
Well, let's just cover some numbers then for a minute. I think it's worth giving people insight from your side of the industry. So from my side of the industry, I look at it, starting with a basic maintenance company and going, okay, you can work off your labour rate and you can charge out. When you're doing basic maintenance, you're not doing materials, right? So without materials costs, you're just going, all right, I'm supplying labour, tools, insurance, and customer service. Couple of other things thrown in there, but that's your basic business model. So you go, all right, if labour is $30 an hour, other expenses are $30 an hour, and I need $30 profit because unless I'm doing all the work myself, I need to make sure I'm actually making money after I pay somebody else's wage. And if I'm doing all the work myself, I want to make more than just a wage too.
Yeah.
Right. Once we start, and my point of view, and then I'll ask yours. Once we start going, we need to account for some materials in the cost of doing something for a customer. So say a basic one is a maintenance customer. I'm throwing some mulch into their garden beds just to top them up and make them look nice for the next season. So I might order anywhere from $50 worth of mulch through to several $100 worth of mulch for some customers. And then I go, okay, I can get it at wholesale price. I can put markup on there, which brings it up to retail price. And then I'm charging them for labour as well. So the materials cost might be $200 for a job, and the total job might be billed out at $1,000 in that instance, right? Once you start dealing with your scale, thinking about those numbers and going, okay, like you mentioned, like sometimes you might go, I just broke even. But ideally, you're going to be factoring in not just a markup, because that's your basic, I want X percentage on top of the cost of the materials, but also you're talking about adding in profit margin, which means that rule of thirds that I just referred to, like a $30 labour, $30 expense, $30 profit margin, is an easy one for me to use. But when you're talking $50,000 job. Have you got a formula you work out and go, okay, I need to know that I've worked out all my expenses, and then I want to add something on top that represents that markup, that margin, whatever it is.
Here's the interesting thing of the back end of the landscape construction. We put a lot of the way we build down into square metre or linear metre rates. So we will go, hey, this is all of the material cost, this is all of the labour cost to put a single square metre out of paving. The tricky one from there is then pricing, hey, if this person only wants 10 square metres of paving, it's still going to take me more time to order, collect, whatever, put it all in, than if I was to, I don't know, times that out for 100 square metres, because it's still, hey, the pavers still only get dropped off once, and it's just me.
The delivery fee is still $100, regardless of whether it's 5 pavers or 5,000 pavers.
Yeah. So it's about. So I'm sitting here with spreadsheets and you name it, and I've got about 150 entries for different square metre rates of different items. Now, each one of those is split up into the material list and the labour, and so I'm sitting trying to get about $120 plus GST, so $132 an hour for anyone, whether it be me or anyone else on site, whether they be a labourer or whomever, to build the project that they want. The pricing is the interesting one of the make or break, and of course you put a little bit of profit on top of that so that you can try and get a little bit of your materials, as you were mentioning, or your labour as well. But just simple little things as you're going around building. I know we had a job recently where we were doing a nice metre tall retaining wall, and the concrete sleepers rocked up, and there was a 75mm discrepancy of their length, and there was I think it was 5mm discrepancy of changeable from their height, and there was the same again on the width. So I was sitting there going, all right, we'll pull them all out, we'll pop them all back in, we'll pull them all back out, pop them all back in to try and get and this is a patterned concrete sleeper, so they have to go in a certain order as well. But each mould which they're pouring into has slowly expanded over time because of the weight of the concrete, and they've been doing it for so many years. And things like that, hey, can I predict that one type of concrete sleeper, all the other concrete sleepers that we've used from that same company have been perfect. But this is their oldest, that's their oldest mould, and it just is what it is. And so, of course, an extra day of 3 guys pulling and pushing these nasty things in and out with an excavator there as well. It all adds up. Sorry, long rabbit hole there, but
of course,
it's the sort of thought of, you try and go, well, hey, I need $120 per hour to cover my overheads, that sort of staff wages, insurance, keeping the tools there, you name it. That's the other one, is you sit there with your own Excel sheet and you have to list them all. You have to go, well, this is how much it costs to run a car for a year just with petrol, you name it. So that's where that $120 comes from. And then you go, well, plus the materials. And when you're doing the quote, you then have a quoting system. So all of this is done in Excel in my business. And my quoting system, I'm sitting there using my old boss's quoting system, and then I've dabbled and changed it a bit so that I can start putting labour and materials down separate, and it'll shoot out at the end how many hours I'm going to turn up on site for. Budgeted hours, and then the profit, which is almost that buffer for those mistakes. Or if we make no mistakes, then happy days. We might make a couple of extra dollars.
That's a challenging process to balance between giving the customers value and making sure you're profitable, not just breaking even.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tricky one because look, they'll turn to their mates who have done a DIY sort of a job, and it still looks really good. But it's hey, is it going to last 3 or 4 years? I don't know, they've put their turf, they've rolled out their beautiful turf on top of 100 mil of nice soil, and then underneath that 100 mil of nice soil is pure clay, and it'll look good for a couple of years until, I don't know, if it's cool season grass like what we've got here, it's only going to slowly clump sideways. It's never going to sort of infill and run and re-knit. And so is it going to be value for money long term? And that's the thing. They'll talk to their friends and go, hey, I've installed that for $15 a square metre, that nice roll there. And it looks magic for the first little bit. And some DIYers do it properly and it's bloody magic too. And it's a bit cheaper for them too because they're doing it for free labour. So.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously there are people who can DIY and have put the effort in to learn all of those things, so that it does come across really nice.
Yeah, so it's a bit different depending on the type of grass that we're putting in. I'm digging down 300 mil, and either I'm amending that or I'm removing it completely and throwing it away, which is pretty sad on the old recycling thing. Look, it gets recycled and sold back to us for other bits and pieces, but it's big difference in pricing.
Yeah, well, I think if you go back to what we're talking about in terms of soil profiles, like if you go to WA and you're working with straight sand, they're going to be continuously adding humus content, they're going to be adding clay content, they're going to be adding things to that, so that over time that sand will have a decent nutritional profile and water retention profile. But initially what they're starting with is just desert.
Yeah.
So you're trying to achieve all of that by digging, removing, and then implementing a 300 mil deep profile that's good nutritional content straight up. Yeah,
correct. Look, job that we've been working on this week, lead hand was on the excavator for 3 days, digging out, and this is pre-existing garden bed. This is amending a garden bed. So client popped in 2 acacias 2 years ago, and they're still, I think, 300 mil tall, something like that. And this is this is an acacia that should be 2.5 meters tall by now. So are
you keeping those acacias, or are you just ripping everything?
There's only 2 of them in there, and the client was like, no, we should try and keep them. So we've dodged and weaved around these 2 tiny little acacias. Easy enough to do. But we've dug down 400 mil below surface height, and we've popped in, I think it was 7 cubic meters of composted cow manure and 3.5 cubic meters of a sharp sand, like a washed river sand, to help amend all of that. And look, the profile was still there. There was still some alright stuff, but it just needed some life. And then we're going to plant into that, put some nice arborist mulch again over the top, and see what happens. And we've done that in the past, and happy days. So it's.
I think that's a real challenge to work with existing plants and improve the soil at the same time, because, and I've thought about this with one that's a little bit out there. Can you rejuvenate Buxus when they're heading towards that sort of 7 to 10 year old mark? And I know a lot of horticulturists will be like, no, if they're turning horrible shades in the leaves and they're sort of over 7 years old, rip them out, put some new plants in there. And I'm like, can you get good nutrition around the roots of those existing plants so that they will rejuvenate? And I think the answer is yes. But it's hard work.
I agree too. And it's that cost analysis for both you and the client. We've done it a few times. So some really beautiful trees. We've potholed in and around them 600-700 mil down, and put some beautiful composted cow manure and some other nice composted stuff in there to help again give it a bit more life. And of course, you're digging around the root systems and go, oh no, I'm avoiding there. I'm moving my pothole, and you
Yes.
kind of get it as close as you can, because in the end, trees will just zip along that top beautiful layer of that 100 mil that someone else has popped in, or you have amended to, and they're not going any deeper than that. So yes, you can, but is going through that whole hedge and doing that for every single one, is it worth your while to go, hey, it's going to get better and it's going to be nicer, but do you just want to dig it out and start afresh?
Well, it's the same concept as aerating a lawn, right? Like you're creating potholes in the root zone for the plants to be able to find nutrients. If you're doing an aeration with the lawn, and then you're putting not just sand back in the holes, but you're putting something that's composted down in those aerated holes, then you're doing the same thing for your lawn. It's allowing the roots in the turf to take a deeper hold, find more nutrition and water across the whole wood. So doing that for a hedge, like you say, hard work, because the roots are a little bit different to grass.
Yeah.
You don't want to destroy the roots in the process of doing it.
And that's where technology's starting to get quite interesting and cool as well. There's a piece of equipment called an air spade. So that's shooting air hard enough that it's removing the soil and shooting the soil away, but it's surprisingly not even damaging the fibrous root systems of trees. So you can then air spade out sections, and they're using it a lot to transplant trees in America. But again, I don't know, you're looking at a piece of equipment that might be 15 grand or something out here. So, look, I've never even looked into it, because I think it's how many transplanted trees are we going to do to cover that kind of a cost?
The other thing you could do similar to the air spade is actually a water jet around the root base to do the same thing. So a guided water jet that can penetrate around the roots without damaging the roots would give you a similar result.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I haven't researched into that as much. I do think maybe the water would hit a few more of the fibrous root systems. But
it could.
I don't know. I haven't researched that, but I know that air spade, because I was so surprised by it that you could blast the dirt away and it wouldn't damage the fibrous root systems to an extent that the tree would die, and you could do that with every last bit of root system. So.
Yeah, so you would have no doubt used dial before you dig, and service like that, and you may have used a vac truck for doing some service identification as well.
We've never used vac trucks. We've done dial before you digs and got surveyors out. Dial before you dig is sometimes close and sometimes very not close.
That's why a vac truck is often used, and the vac truck is essentially a powerful vacuum and powerful pressure, like water pressure gun at the same time. And so they use the water pressure to loosen the soil and the vacuum to suck it away so that it's out of the road. So yeah, similar sort of thing on a smaller scale, like a small pressure cleaner, and then vacuum out the hole. Go again.
I've actually saw one the other day, and I thought it was very impressive. And I also thought at the same time I could probably get that same amount removed by hand.
Yeah,
but it was it's a good way of doing it. Yeah, I think I spotted one. I was going to visit Floriade, actually, our local it's beautiful bulbs and you name it, but it's one of the most amazing things we've got in Canberra. And I was going to go visit, and I saw one being used, and I went, oh yeah, that's sort of how much soil that they've got there to remove. And then I came back past it maybe 3 or 4 hours later, and I just went, that was only about five wheelbarrows worth of dirt. No, I'm sure it was more than that. But yeah, I think it's using the right tool for the right job, and knowing to to go in there and look for those sorts of things. Because when we're digging 400 or 500 mil down for a garden bed, that's in very easy gas, water, electricity area. So yeah, you've got to be very, very careful.
Yeah, that's why some of these alternatives are good.
Yeah, bit better than hitting it with the excavator, that's for sure.
Yeah,
heard some good stories from some other teams, and yeah, I don't want to hit one. That's for sure.
No,
Happy
definitely
to
not.
pothole and get the surveyor out when I need him. Sorry. So going back to your Buxus problem, I think it's about trying to research and look into it and talk to brilliant people about that issue, because that's the thing. I can go, hey, I recommend digging out a few potholes in and around, and that'll help amend and be brilliant. But there's, I think, a combination of lots and lots of different things. There's a company down, I think they're Melbourne way, but I can't remember, but they're called Top Buxus, and they've done the genetics on what it needs, and they've done all these sorts of tests of, hey, this is the perfect stuff to rejuvenate it and get it ready. And hey, a mixture of doing some sugary fertilizers and bits and pieces to get it back up and ready, and getting some nice composted cow manure and you name it in and around. But there's only so much soil that you can play with, because the more you go up trying to give nice compost to it, and you're just going to give it stem rot and get rid of that cambium layer in and around the plant. So it's trying to go, hey, what's worth your while, and that's
so I think Top Buxus have got a couple of products, but they've got like a product you can apply as a foliar product, which it's going to get absorbed through the leaves and going to give you some immediate positive results. And then they've got a granular that you can put around the root zone so that it will get absorbed in. But I guess that brings us back to that, if you're putting manure compost on top of the existing soil, like, it is building that soil up higher, whereas if you can get some down in around the root zone at subterranean level, then it's going to be really good for it.
Yeah, remove that clay or the rock, or the amount of plants that we've pulled out, and there's a brick in underneath the plant, and it's like, well, why? Yeah, I don't know. I think the best I did maybe a month or two ago, I was putting in a hedge, and we were digging down 400 or 500 mil by hand in an area that needed that was hard access, and I pulled out 6 rocks that were sort of 300-400 mil wide in this one just straight, and there was a Buxus planted above it, and everyone's going, well, why didn't that Buxus grow?
It's never thrived. Wonder why.
Well, that's why there's 6 bloody big rocks down there.
Yeah, and I get a bit of a chuckle when I see this, but people put up on Facebook Marketplace a picture of their Buxus hedge. Full-grown Buxus, available for free, you remove. It's like, okay, if you pull those plants out of the ground and transplant them somewhere else, the survival rate, even if you know what you're doing.
It really depends. It depends on species, depends on how you go about it. And look, we're professionals, and we'll go in and I'll say, look, it's probably 80% chance of survival, and that's with us doing everything we possibly can.
Yeah.
That's for a Buxus, and I don't know, some plants you might go, well, that's about a 20% chance. Is that worth your while for all of our time and effort? And a lot of people say no, and some people say yes. But yeah, people go wild for the free Buxus down the street.
I'm Garry Ashton, and I'm here to help business owners succeed and enjoy being in business. Does running your business feel chaotic? Maybe you started it for freedom, to live the life you wanted, but now you're stuck in the grind, overwhelmed and exhausted. The stress doesn't stop. You work harder, but nothing really changes. Get real support at Think Tank Coaching. Get crystal clear on future goals, your ideal customers, and the numbers to focus on that will move your business forward. If you're ready to make a change, let's talk. Book your free strategy session now at thinktankcoaching.com. I transplanted a couple of plants for customers when I had my excavator. So small enough trees that it was possible with the 1.7 ton excavator to dig around the other side of the tree first, but then get the 300 ml bucket in under the roots and lift it out with soil around the roots still, and successfully transplanted these trees. So first off, prepare the hole where I'm going to put it. Second off, dig around the tree so that I can get it out of the ground with the 300 ml bucket, and then get the bucket under the roots and lift it out with soil around the roots still, straight into the new hole where it's going to go, and then set it up there so that it's watered and got good soil there, and away it goes. But yeah, that came with a clear warning. Like we're talking family memorabilia where one tree was for their daughter and another one was from the mum that had passed away, and they wanted it in their yard instead of her yard. So it's significantly important trees, and I'm like, these are important to you. I can't guarantee the outcome.
And that's a professional doing it and going, well, hey, I'm probably going to remove a third of the root systems or more, just even doing it really nicely and going as far out as I possibly can. And then, look, we jump in and we'll prune the actual tree itself a third down, so that it's got less foliage to do. And I'm sure that it's something that you did too for these prize things. Yep,
less demand on those roots when they prune the tree, Yeah,
and then look, there's even other ways. We've done it once before, because this is how expensive it is. Where depending on the size of the tree, you'll then dig. Just say, let's say it's a 2 metre tall tree. We're trying to move a nice lemon. We then go a metre away, depending on the height. You would then go a metre away, dig a big ring trench in and around it, sort of 300-400 mil. Then you leave it be. And then you come back 6 months later and you do it again, 500 mil, and then you do it again. And then you slowly, what that's doing is you're getting rid of those fibrous root systems, because you're oxygenating them and they're keeling over and dying, and you're creating a pot in the ground. And look, I'm sure that you've heard of it before, but hopefully someone out there listening might go, well, hey, I've got time on my hands, and this is something that I want to live. Let's move it. And that's the thing. Is it worth your while, me coming in and doing that for a 2 metre tall or a 3 metre tall tree? I've seen people doing it for massive trees and getting cranes involved and you name it. And then you go, well, hey, is it worth the $5,000 that's going to cost or more to move this silly thing? And sometimes it is worthwhile, but it's about
when it holds significant family value, then people are willing to spend money on these things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And also, I know, other things too, like fruit trees and stuff like that. They've already spent so much money on the beautiful specimen, and they've watched it grow a couple of metres, and you name it, and they go, well, hang on, it's soon to fruit. And then I go, well, us moving it might push it back a few years, and it might not fruit very well at all. So
that's right.
And then they move it, and it is what it is. Sometimes it'll go really well. I don't think we've lost one though. We've lost a couple of little smaller shrubs when I haven't put as much effort in, of course.
Yeah, well, the last one I moved was a persimmon tree, so fruit tree. Moved it at the end of the season, so it was still warm enough that it could root well when it was planted, but it lost all of its leaves and looked like it was dead. And I said to the lady, it was her mum's tree, I said, just make sure it's got what it needs, got enough water, not too much, and we'll inspect it at spring, and if it's looking like it's actually dead, we'll pull it out. And when spring came around, I said, have a look at all the buds on those branches there. That thing's alive and ready to thrive.
Yeah, and it's about picking that right time period, because it's kind of going into dormancy. Look, you can do it while it is dormant, but that's the other thing too. If you're putting it into a wet environment, that might breed more fungus to come and start eating it, and it. So it does. Yeah, there's many different factors that jump in, and hey, it's going to go in a nice sunny area or whatever. hey, let's go in winter. It's deciduous. Off we go. You might go at the very end of winter, so that those wounds heal over quickly. But yeah, each thing, yeah, doing a bit of research and stuff like that, or talking to some other people in industry, they'll instantly go, well, hey, I've never done that, or oh, I've done that. This is what I did. Well, it died. No good.
Yeah, that's it. We've gone down some interesting rabbit holes, Reon, and just looking at an hour and a half we've been chatting. A little bit of that was before we pressed record, but is there any particular topics that we should touch on?
I don't really know. I'm quite happy with what we covered. There was one thing that I wanted to kind of have a chat about, and that was sort of just making sure that you're looking after yourself in your life to try and help the business to do well. And I think it's very important as a business owner, and hopefully some people out there might have a listen and go, hey, because look, I pushed a business through COVID, and yeah, we've been running 6 years now, and look, the first few years we weren't very profitable whatsoever because I'm trying to learn on the job and make some really nice things happen, and we're sitting there putting some big hours in, and in the end you've got to look at your family and everyone else around you and know how much that's putting on them. And that's the thing, it takes a few years to push it into something that you can, I know, go off and have a chat with the podcasters. I know the business doesn't blow up behind you as you.
The mental health suffers from some of these things, and it can be very taxing if you already have, if you already struggle with depression or anything, anxiety, those sorts of things. Yeah, running a business will stress you. It will stress and it will stretch.
Stress. Yeah, sometimes it's good stress and it keeps you entertained. Look, I've seen some good businesses go down, and it's depressing, and it's sad to see. Like 9 I've counted in the last 3 years that I personally know have gone down in Canberra, and it's some of them are sort of 15, 16 plus people, and some of them are 2 or 3 people in the business. A lot of it's a bit of strain in other economical sort of ways, but it's a big strain on people, so it's good to think about when you're going to.
I did an interview with guys from TX or Trademark, if you've heard of them, and highly recommend people in our industry that need somebody to talk to. You can look up the TX hotline number. You can get some free counselling there. I think they give 6 sessions or something for free, so you don't need a mental health plan. You don't need to go to your GP. You just call them, and they will walk through the challenges with you.
I think it's important, and it's important so that you can continue plodding through business and you name it, because you're there to try and earn a little bit of money and make a living, but you're also there to not explode and do yourself mischief.
One of the things I want to finish up on is just giving people a little bit more insight into what your business looks like. We've covered so many things already, so they've got a really good insight there. But you mentioned you've got a couple of full-time guys that have qualifications, and you've got a casual guy that comes in as well that helps you. And you're doing maintenance as well as construction. We've talked about some of the numbers, but one of the numbers I'm curious about now is sort of the size of your business, given the amount of employees you've got. How often would you complete a landscape construction, or how many would you do in a given period of time? Like if you say you did 100 in 12 months, or like 3 a week, or one a month, what's it look like?
We're looking at maybe a $40,000 job in 3 to 4 weeks. It depends on how many people are on site and you name it, but we're trying to aim at getting $12,000 a month to just cover the labour and costings of the business. So a $40,000 job is going to quickly disappear. It depends on the materials and you name it. But if it's just labour involved, which is probably the stat that you want, more than maybe, I know, because a $40,000 job, we could be there for a week, but it's $30,000 of materials. So yeah, we're trying to do $12,000 a month of just labour. So that's across both the maintenance and the construction. So yeah, that covers pretty much costs of that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that gives people a fairly good insight into the type of jobs you're doing and how big the jobs are, how often you get them, or how long it takes you to complete a job. That's what I was looking for.
What else? I can bring it backwards. I think that's about $800 a person a day, and of course, some days we're going to be pushing into the 1,200, and some days we'll go, "How's this retaining wall fitting in together?" Oh, we've made $50.
Of course, and that's part of being in business, isn't it? Because you get good and you get bad, and you're the person responsible for wearing that.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and that's where that mental health side of things come in as well. I think it's important, and some people are going to be magic fencers, or some people are going to be magic concreters. You name it, and you just stick with that. And happy days. It depends on what you need for your own business. So, yeah, it's. I love this because I love learning, and I love. I don't know, if I was mowing lawns every day, I think my brain would explode.
Fair enough.
But it's good for its own way as well. You can sit there and listen to cool podcasts and enjoy your life as well in other aspects.
Yeah, well, obviously there's a lot of guys out there that are happy to just mow lawns and they don't want to do any gardening maintenance or anything. They just want to do the lawns, and that works for them.
Yeah.
But
find your thing and just enjoy it. I think that's what it's all about.
Most guys in our industry will consider a variety of jobs, and I think that's part of the fun of working out what works well for them and what's going to actually provide them a sense of fulfillment and also put money in the bank.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for your time. It's been magic.
No worries. Thank you for joining me. It's been interesting talking to you. We've learnt quite a few things about what it is you do, and some of those jobs we've taken some interesting rabbit holes down.
Yeah, cool. Wonderful. Well, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.